Now, the African Transformation Movement has slammed an alleged racist incident that happened at a grocery store in Four Ways, that's in northern Johannesburg. Now, in a video that's circulating on social media, you can see a white couple that is allegedly calling black customers baboons. ATM spokesperson Zama Ntshona joins us for more. Very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us, or good evening, is it? We saw a reaction from your party as the ATM, very strongly worded. In fact, you go on to say that this experience is reflected and lived by many South Africans since the dawn of democracy, and it's been 30 years now.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening to you and the viewers. Well, for us at the African Transformation Movement, truly it is unthinkable that 30 years into democracy, we would still be speaking about such occurrences. In fact, as you are saying, rightfully pointing out, this issue is not an isolated one. From basic education to institutions of higher learning, in our workplaces, in different organizations across the country. In fact, when you go to the Human Rights Commission, it is clear, as according to their reports, that they are inundated with issues of this nature, reports of racism within our country. This is worrisome because we do know that this is a dehumanizing phenomenon. This is where individuals, in fact, when you look at section 10 of the Equality Act, when you look at section 9 of the Bill of Rights, section 11 of the Equality Act, it is clearly mapped out that this is truly something that shouldn't be part of our society. So for us as the African Transformation Movement, this is why we are condemning any act of that nature and calling for further investigation. But any individual who actually goes as far as calling people baboons, that individual truly, when found guilty, should face the full might of the law.
How do you then figure that we're still experiencing this kind of racism that also comes with discrimination that continues to still have some kind of hold within the majority of the black population in a government that is also a black government? Why do we still see this happening?
It is unfortunate that though the drafters of the Constitution and the architects of our democracy had actually envisaged and actually mapped out a future that would have a rainbow nation, unity to the core, social cohesion, symbols that we all believe in and actually ready to fight and die for. But it seems as if that did not trickle down to ordinary South Africans. There are individuals who still do not subscribe to those ideals. And you see this in incidences of this nature. As I have said, these are no isolated incidences. In fact, if you remember, if you look at a case, it is a 2011 case. It is the Hasselman versus Geleba case, where the court actually, in the use of the same word, said that this must actually be looked into as hate speech. Not only that, it also went further to say it has racial undertones and a derogatory meaning. And when you look at the Straydom versus Chilwara case of 2008, even in that, you see that there is echoing of the courts on the matter. Maybe the Mangope versus Asmal and another of 1997, it is clear that when these names are used, people have ideas of labeling people as subhuman and less of intelligent beings. So unfortunately, there seems to be a difference between what was envisaged, what was preached, to what is our daily life experience in South Africa.
So in light of what was hoped for in this overarching project of the Rainbow Nation, dismantling this, the racist system of apartheid in a place like South Africa that really has a unique history of having to still live with your oppressors, how does the country go about the decolonization project, both at individual level and at institutions, particularly learning institutions across the country?
Thank you so much. One way is to raise a generation that embraces the true essence of a rainbow nation. Raise a generation that believes in the symbols of this country. Raise a generation that sees hope in the unity of this country, social cohesion, working together to actually arriving at the ideals of society. But one way is also to actually issue out harsher sentences as a deterrent. Some people are not going to learn till we are able to actually enforce through the laws of this country and this justice system of this country that it is truly uncalled for. It is not acceptable for individuals to dehumanize people in that way. So for us in the African Transformation Movement, there is not just one, but one way of doing it. You need a multi-pronged approach to actually convey this message to the masses out there. Let all organizations know that they have a responsibility to actually speak to unity and actually speak against racism in this country. Let government platforms, officials and leaders of this country champion such a cause. Not only that, in our schools, as I have said, and in our various entities that we have, we must all commit to actually shunning and plucking out such tendencies within our society so that we can build a united South Africa where individuals are not going to look down on other individuals whilst trying to exalt themselves on the basis of the color of their skin.
Yeah, so we seemingly have this set of perceptions and stereotypes that, you know, some may have inherited from their family, from social experiences, and experiences that are not even on our own. I'll take you back to the incident a couple of days ago of the lady on that flight. Of course, we saw what happened there with the interaction between the black woman and the colored lady, and the prejudice, the kind of comments that we heard coming from her. As the ATM, have you reacted to that incident? Because it brings a different set of racism, if we're to look at it at that. Mostly it's between black people and white people, but we see it happening within demographics of other races as well.
Thank you so much. The African Transformation Movement truly believes in that the law must apply regardless of who is in front of the law. It is imperative that all individuals, where allegations of such a nature are brought forth, they must answer and the law must actually take its course. Now, it is imperative that there shouldn't be any incidences where the other feels a sense of entitlement, either by proximity to power or by either being associated with corporations that they feel they give them advantage over other individuals. What we fought for as this country was that we must have equality. So regardless of where it comes from, it must actually be dealt with harshly as possible so that we are able to build a society that will speak to a unity of purpose, a unity behind the growth of this country and a growth vision of this country. And even with that incident, the African Transformation Movement says the same thing. Investigate, if found guilty, harshest sentence possible.
And speaking of investigation, I'm curious to know, as the ATM, if you've been in touch with the lady that's involved in that particular incident that you wrote the statement about.
Oh, not yet, not yet. You would appreciate that the time of the year that we are in right now, there are some areas of our functionality that are suspended due to holidays. But that does not stop us as the African Transformation Movement at this time to actually call it out when things call out actions that are unbecoming. But I think it is imperative that we reach out to all the affected individuals so that we are able also to get a fuller picture. This is why we're calling for an investigation and upon individuals found guilty, because also there are two sides to every story.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this conversation, what is a practical vision as to what a decolonized South Africa would look like for you as a party? Just being very specific about the desired results that you'd actually like to see. And more importantly, who needs to do the heavy lifting here to create this more equality that we're all looking for?
Thank you so much. The creation of a conducive environment where all individuals can be equal in this country, it is primarily the duty of our government. Our government must see to it that we create a conducive environment, but also it is incumbent upon each and every citizen to actually not only be bystanders, but we must be active participants in the emancipation of our society. So we believe that every other, as I said before, that every other structure that we have within this country also must play its part so that we are able to build. This is our country. And those who are entrusted with power and those who have entrusted power equally are accountable to see to it that we're able to build the kind of society that we want. South Africa wants to get to a point where we are no longer looking at each other through the lens of racial segregation. We want to get to a point where this country is able to grow without others wanting, unfortunately, I will mention this, wanting to move away from South Africa because they feel that the others are dragging them down. We must get to a point where we are able to buy a unified vision that will grow the country. So I believe that all of us, we have a role to play, but the government cannot say, after being entrusted and mandated by the people, that the people have not assisted. The government must go out of its way to ensure that there is not only the creation of a conducive environment for equality, but the preaching of this so that it is entrenched within our society, that all groups are lobbied to this unification of the country so that we do not have such occurrences in the near future.
Very well then, ATM spokesperson Mr. Zama Ntshona, thank you so much for your time.